This is a true horrifying story, part 26. In part 25, I spoke about the risks behind the most dangerous book, Shams al-Ma'arif. This is your final warning. Do not buy this book, do not read this book. Many viewers have asked me, why have I said the book's name? As a content creator and a true storyteller, I cannot provide information without a solid reference. And for those who doubt the information that was shared about this book, Mu'min Abu Mecca confirmed my video and confirmed the dangers behind this book. He also shared a story about the book himself, and he warned his viewers not to go anywhere near it. This story took place in Egypt in the year 2013. Kuwaiti man was intrigued about this book. He never had interest to practice black magic, but he wanted to study the book. He met someone online that has original copies of this book located in Alexandria, Egypt. He flew to Egypt the same week and met with the man selling the book. He purchased the book and he extended his stay for a whole week to finish it. He wanted to study it in Egypt and then get rid of it before he flies back to Kuwait. On the first night, he read a big chunk of the book and he went through some rituals but couldn't feel anything. He closed the book and went to bed. The feeling was very off in his hotel room. Kinda felt like someone was laying next to him on bed. The man wakes up, has breakfast, and continues reading the book. Out of nowhere, things in the bedroom would start to tip over and move. His spine started to shiver. He immediately decides that the time is up. He got an answer that was real. He called the man that he got the book from, and he told him, "Keep the money I gave you, but just take the book back." He drove to that man with the book. He handed the book over to him and he drove back to his hotel. He stayed in Egypt for a couple more days and then flew back to Kuwait. When he reached home to Kuwait, he started unpacking his bag. He finds the book, Shams al-Ma'arif, inside his suitcase. The same book he was reading in Egypt. The man was certain that he only took one copy and he returned that one copy back. But once you tie yourself around rituals inside this book, the presence within this book will never let you go. The dangers this book holds cannot be undone without religious cleansing. This man suffered horrific experiences for a whole year because he read the book. Not only read the book, but he also practiced the rituals and he did not complete it. Stay away from Shams al-Ma'arif. This is a true horrifying story, part 27. In part 25 and 26, I warned you guys about the most dangerous book that was ever written. A man that goes by the name Samar al-Ruhani practices black magic. And he learned how to get in touch with the world of jinns using the book Shams al-Ma'arif. On his early days, he was practicing rituals by reading verses from this book. And the verses from this book made objects move around in directions ordered by him. Now, I thought the video was fake, but I've dug up a little research about this man and I confirmed that he is indeed a person that practices black magic. By reading or listening to these verses, you might open doors that are very hard to close. So stay away from this book. Now, I will have the video played on mute because it's very dangerous to have the words spoken or listened to from your phone speaker. I will publish part 28 very soon, and I will tell you guys about the dangers of another book that people have mentioned in my comments. Based on some research I've done, people call it more dangerous than Shams al-Ma'arif. So stay tuned. This is a true horrifying story, part 28. In parts 25, 26, and 27, I warned you all about a dangerous book that opens doors to the world of jinns named Shams al-Ma'arif. And in part 27, I told you that there's another book that goes way beyond Shams al-Ma'arif. The book I will talk about was written way before Shams al-Ma'arif. The author of Shams al-Ma'arif had to derive and learn from this book in the first place. It is the first manual for black magic that was ever written. This book is called Kitab al-Ghazali. written by Abu Hamid al-Ghazali in the 11th century. Many religious scholars say that Imam al-Ghazali was not the author of this book, but no one is 100% sure about who the author is till this day. The difference between al-Ghazali and Shams al-Ma'arif is that Shams al-Ma'arif is more technical. Many chapters teach readers all sorts of different rituals and how each ritual works. Al-Ghazali, on the other hand, is a small book that is one ritual from the start to finish. It is so dangerous, I have seen imams putting on gloves while touching this book. If you read this book, you will tie yourself around a ritual that puts you in contact with the world of jinns until the day you die. Al-Ghazali is a very lethal book. Now, I don't have to warn you guys about reading it, because you won't find it, and because no original copy exists anywhere. There's a bunch of rip-off PDFs online that claim to be the original copies, but I doubt it. Ancient governments have burned copies of this book, and with the very few copies of this book left in the world, whoever puts it up online, it usually gets taken down. This shows you the difference between these two books. One of the copies left is known to be somewhere in Oman, and the person that owns it is an old man that sells black magic services. The jinns that he's in contact with are a few of the most powerful jinns in their world. People would go to him, pay him money so he can cast spells on people they despise, and he would cause unspeakable harm to people by using black magic. All this man needs to harm you is a piece of your DNA. It could be a swab of your spit, a tissue that you used, a piece of your hair, or even a picture of you. Only a few people living among us today have the capability of causing such harm to others. They're the ones that passionately tied themselves around books such as Al-Ghazali. We might see these characters in movies, but I assure you that these people do exist. The Book of God always destroys black magic, but it's never that easy. A'udhu billah. If you ever came across an ancient book that reads Al-Ghazali, do not touch it. Only by touching it, you might lure jinns closer to you for a very long time. This is a true horrifying story, part 29. This is an old famous story known as The Boy and the Jinn. This story took place in Nottingham, England in the early 90s. There is a massive abandoned building that has 120 rooms, many dorms, and very big halls. The building was bought to start an Islamic madrasa, meaning school for boys. They renovated the place and scheduled classes. When the school started, all the students were warned and restricted from accessing the west side of the building. No reasons given, just no one is allowed to go to the west side of the school. One of the students, let's give him a name. His name is Imran. Imran was 13 years old at the time, and he's from Bangladesh. He does not speak a word of English nor Arabic. The only language Imran spoke was Bengali. Imran was a quiet kid. He didn't have any friends. He always walked alone, sleeps alone, and eats alone. One day, Imran strays off to the west side of the building on his own, the side that he was restricted from accessing. He comes back after a while with a Quran in his hand. He goes to the Quran teacher and tells him, "Test me in Arabic." Remember, he does not speak a word in any other language but Bengali. The teacher laughs it off and starts to test him out. Verse after verse, he realizes that this student memorized the whole Quran efficiently, and everyone was extremely shocked about this. On that same night, all the students head to their dorms and go to sleep. During the middle of the night, they banged the principal's room, screaming, "There's a jinn, there's a jinn." The principal found out that while the students were asleep, the walls in their dorm would bang and scratch, and there will be voices coming out the walls saying the name Imran. Then it all added up. They figured out that Imran was possessed by a jinn that was a hafiz of the Quran. So an Islamic exorcism wouldn't really do much. The sheikh would put his hand on Imran and recite the ayat, but the jinn would come back with the following verse to break the exorcism. The ruqya cannot work on a jinn that memorized the Quran. And the jinn himself is challenging the raqi on who knows the Quran better. One of the imams that witnessed this whole situation asked to send Imran back home for 1 month, and that should treat his situation. They send him home. He comes back after 1 month, not knowing any Arabic, not knowing any English, doesn't know anything about the Quran, the same old quiet kid. And no one ever dared going near the west side of the building after what happened to Imran.
This is a true horrifying story, part 31. This story was submitted by Faisal bin Salah.
My name is Faisal bin Salah. I'm 34 years old and I've been married for 12 years. We have two daughters. One is 5 years old and the other one is 10 months old. I set up a company in a free zone, so we stayed in Dubai for 2 months, from July to September. We stayed at a 1-bedroom apartment at Hayat Regency, Dubai Creek. It all started from day one with very strange things happening. My wife woke up one morning with brown spots on her hand. It's believed to be a sign that someone attempted to make sihr, but it has failed. I told my wife that it must be something else, do not worry. But she was very convinced, because we both witnessed the lights turning on and off on random nights. And these were signs that we believed that had to do with jinns or black magic. On that same night, I started growling very loud. I got up, jumped from one side of the room to the other, where my wife was still on her prayer rug, and I strangled my wife. She immediately realized what was going on, and she started yelling Ayat al-Kursi. While she was reading Ayat al-Kursi, I lost the strength in my hands, and then I started gaining consciousness. We went to the other side of the apartment, and I told her, quiet, quiet. Why are you yelling? We're waking everyone up. She didn't believe who I was at that state that I was in. She panicked, and she told me what happened in the bedroom. I needed some time to realize what has happened as well. The next day, I called my mother. She knows a lot about Islam, and she said that we had to leave that apartment immediately. Around 8 p.m. on that same day, I told my wife that I'll be going shopping. She said, the girls and I are gonna come with you. We're not staying here alone. We all left the house together, and we got back around 10 p.m. We came back and saw all the lights off. But we remembered that we kept them on, cause we left it with the key card in the slot. When we turned the lights on, all hell broke loose. The kitchen cabinets were swinging front and back. All the dishes and glasses were being thrown. It was very loud, scary, and traumatizing to look at. We quickly run downstairs, report this incident to the manager, and we ask for our money back. We called the manager upstairs to witness the situation, and he believed his own eyes because he was a Muslim as well. The apartment was wrecked and the doors were still slamming front and back. We then moved to another apartment in Palm Jumeirah. A month later, I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone. My wife came up to me at 3 a.m. and she told me, do you know what Sophia just said in her sleep? Sophia is the 5-year-old daughter. She said boiling water in a Moroccan dialect. Sophia only spoke Dutch and English. That was a warning not to go back again. This is a true horrifying story, part 32. In parts 25, 26, and 27, I warned you all about the most dangerous book that was ever written, Shams al-Ma'arif. This book is a portal to the world of jinns and demons. There's a person that read this book, and this person faces traumatic incidents every single day. She's a woman from Jordan. She graduated university being the top graded student. She is a genius. She has read hundreds of novels. She had a strong passion for books. She heard about this book called Shams al-Ma'arif. She couldn't live knowing that there's a book that has a strong story behind it without reading it. After many months of trying to find the real copy of this book, she heard about an old man that lives in Jordan that had an ancient copy of Shams al-Ma'arif. She got in touch with him and he refused to sell the book, but she didn't quit. It took her many weeks to finally buy the book off of him. She goes back home and immediately starts reading the book. After she read the first few chapters of the book, she felt kinda hungry, so she decided to go to the kitchen and prepare some food and then continue reading. As she goes into the kitchen, she opens the oven and a gale of fire burns her face. She spent 3 weeks in the burn unit rehabilitation. The oven was switched off. No one knows till this day where the flames came from. She had multiple plastic surgeries to recover her facial features, but till this day, her face is not what it used to be. After recovery, she goes home weeks later and she looks for the book, knowing that the jinn was the reason she was harmed. She tried to find the book for many days, but it was lost. Years go by. She was home watching TV one day. She came across an Islamic channel that had a live interview program. An old man was being interviewed on this channel. He was asked by the imams about the dangers of a black magic book that he owns. His body was very unusual and his face was burned off. He got a book from under the table and he said this: I once sold this book to a young woman a long time ago, and the demons warned me not to stop my rituals, and if I gave the book away, they would burn my face and they would burn hers. And after I gave the book, I woke up the next day without my normal face. And the book I sold to that woman was right there laying next to me on bed. I knew that it was the jinns that brought the book back to me. And this is when I strengthened my iman and I quit black magic. Quote, this was all said on TV, and the poor girl was just standing there, watching the same man speak. The man on TV was the man that gave her the book. The book he showed on TV was the book he handed to her. That was the book that was lost. The book that she was looking for. This is a true horrifying story, part 34. I've been talking about horror stories for a while now. I've talked about jinn stories, serial killers, books that are involved in black magic, and haunted places. And all my horror content is based in the Middle East. But this time though, things have slightly changed. Ever since I started, my horror story videos blew up. And ever since I posted part 19, I got many message requests from sketchy Instagram accounts. And these accounts were telling me to stop talking about jinns and black magic. I don't know if it was or not, but I kind of felt like I was being warned. A few weeks later, after part 19, I eventually posted part 25. And in part 25, I spoke about one of the most dangerous books to read, Shams al-Ma'arif, an old ancient book that carries rituals for black magic. Right after that post, I was facing strange things. I suffered from nightmares. My nightmares were infested with crows. Every dream I would have had to have at least one crow in it. Mu'min Abu Mecca responded and confirmed the information I shared in part 25. And then he got his account banned on TikTok a few days later for more than a whole week. I don't know if this is the aftermath because we spoke about this book or not, but I am facing horror sometimes in my house, in my toilet, during the shower, and even before I sleep. And I'm still posting videos for my fans. Whether the jinns like it or not, I'm still going to expose and talk about black magic. I've had commentators that practice black magic. Wallah al-azim. I've also been threatened by many people that I'm gonna get the worst nightmares I have ever seen, just because I talked about this book. And it's also because I'm making the younger ones get closer to their prayers and their adhkar. Let me hit you guys on a quick secret. If you were not afraid, or seemed like you were not afraid, not even Iblis can possess you. You being from Ummat Muhammad are stronger than any demon that was ever created. And what I'm saying might piss these people and their beings off, but let me assure you, I'm a person that's not a sheikh, not an imam, nor a person that is 100% educated on the knowledge of Islam. But I can guarantee you this though, even if you were scared from the inside, but physically seemed like you were brave, I swear to God, they cannot do anything to you. I would sometimes shower and hear a woman in the same toilet speaking. I would sometimes sleep and feel like something or someone is sitting next to me. But I act like I didn't feel nothing, I didn't hear nothing. Was I supposed to stop when I got these threats because I was talking too much? No. I'm still gonna post for you guys and nothing can stop me. This is a true horrifying story, part 35. As much as this news hurts me, it may hurt you as well. This is the last episode of true horrifying stories. And there is a reason why. This is by far the most disturbing story I have ever read. I was not able to sleep last night after reading this story. So I am warning you. This story is extremely disturbing. This story took place on the April 1st of 2022. April Fools, bro! April Fools and Ramadan Kareem. I am never going to stop this series. Stay tuned for part 35 tomorrow. This is a true horrifying story, part 35. This topic is requested by many people. Who is Al-Masih Al-Dajjal? Al-Dajjal is the Antichrist in Islam. In Christianity, he's known as the false Messiah. He is a person, a human being. He will be the leader of the New World Order. His army are initially known as the Illuminati. It consists of many leaders, high net worth big ballers, and also famous people. They're being used as puppets to deceive people like you and I. Al-Dajjal is known to be very old. He's been around since the prophets. He is chained up on a deserted island that no one knows where it is. The Illuminati's task is to prepare for his arrival, and when he is out, he will cause complete destruction. He will deceive many people, making them believe that he is God. He will be worshipped by millions, if not billions of people, and his army will be indestructible. Only with God's will his chains will break, and when he comes he will have supernatural abilities. He will be able to control the weather, strike thunders, fly and levitate objects. And he also has a one-time ability. God gave him that ability that he can do only one time. The people would go up to him and tell him, if you're a god, then prove it. He will slice a person in half and then bring his halves back together, and that person will live. The scary thing about Al-Dajjal is he's not only going to be worshipped by humans, he's also worshipped by jinns. He has a big army, including Iblis. He will shed blood on earth. He will kill every single being that does not call him God. He will travel the whole world in just 40 days. So wherever you are in the world, you will see him. Except for two places, Mecca and Medina. These are two places in the world the Dajjal will not step foot in, because Mecca and Medina are guarded by angels and they will not allow him in. They say that he will deceive Muslims as well, Muslims that pray 5 times a day. He'll make you think by worshipping him you'll get all the happiness in the world, and he'll shower you in gold. Only people with strong faith will be able to read the word kafir on his forehead. Us humans fear demons and jinns, but this human is feared and worshipped by demons. Now there is a way to prevent him from coming close to you, but I'll let the experts explain how that can be done in detail. There are many minor and major signs throughout time, signs of when the Dajjal will come. And I assure you, we are more than halfway through these signs. This is a true horrifying story, part 36. This story was narrated by a very well-known sheikh on the Merciful Servant YouTube channel. This channel is a legitimate source. They're based in the United States. This story took place in California many years ago. There is a sheikh in California that is known to be a very big raqi. He performed over 200 exorcisms on people that were possessed. He came across another sheikh, a friend of his, and this sheikh told him, listen, how do you believe in this stuff? Jinn possessions, black magic. This stuff doesn't exist. Jinns cannot possess humans. He didn't want to argue with him, so he let it be. One day, he took him to one of his patients that he's been treating for a while. A young Muslim woman possessed by 3 jinns. A jinn family that consists of a male, a female, and their young one. All 3 possessing this Muslim woman. After many exorcism sessions, that visit with the sheikh that didn't believe in such stuff was maybe the 4th visit. They go to her house and he prepared him with the ruqya. The sheikh that was in denial started reading Ayat al-Kursi. Ayat al-Kursi is a short verse from the Quran that we read after prayers. It protects us from the evil eye, demons, and black magic. The woman elevated 3 feet from the ground. The sheikh's hand started shaking as that happened. The family of the 3 jinns were talking to each other through this woman while the ruqya was being performed. The 3 jinns would shout and argue with each other whether they should leave her body or not. The sheikh skipped a verse from fear. Seeing this for the first time, he skipped a verse. The woman looked at him and turned her head 180 degrees, a movement that is physically not possible. He took a step back and was not able to continue. Eventually, the other sheikh stepped in and continued the exorcism on this woman. They left her house, and the sheikh that was in denial was sure that these things are in existence. This is a true short story that shows you a few of the many side effects that can happen during an exorcism. This is a true horrifying story, part 37. Who are Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, also known as Gog and Magog? These evil forces have been mentioned in the Quran, the Bible, and the Torah. Ya'juj is a tribe and Ma'juj is another tribe. They're both related. They existed close to the era of Moses, who is Musa alayhi salam. They are human beings that have been reproducing and increasing in number for thousands of years. They are the most barbaric and vicious humans that ever existed. They are cut off from mankind. They are nowhere close to any civilization. Some definitions have slightly proved that they may be located somewhere in the North Pole. And some modern theories state that there is a civilization in the North Pole that we never contacted before. They will come out one day, and they will destroy, rape, murder, kill, and eat everything around them. In all the sacred texts, they are defined in the same way. And many prophets have warned their people from Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. In Islam, it states that for every one Muslim, there are 999 Gog and Magogs. That's how big their population is. In the Bible, they're described as evil forces that will join Satan in the great struggle at the end of time. They are so many that one narration says, during their journey, they will pass by a lake in Palestine called Tabariya. They all start drinking from this lake, till the ones that are far behind eventually catch up. There will be no water left, and one of them will say, there's meant to be a lake in this area. They were cut off from mankind during an era of a king named Dhul Qarnayn. Some people refer to him as Alexander the Great in other scriptures. He joined forces with other nations and built a wall. The whole wall was made of iron to block them from attacking mankind. They've been trapped between two mountains for thousands of years. However, the Prophet narrated that Ya'juj wa Ma'juj have broken a hole that is this big. No one knows how close they are today. The Quran also states that there will not be any army that can beat them. They will kill everybody. And after everyone's death, they will say, we conquered the habitants of the world. It's time to kill the habitants of the sky. They're talking about angels here. They will point their arrows to the sky and shoot. You don't have to be Muslim to believe what I'm saying. All sacred texts, all religions, have warned people about Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. The day they come out is a curse for every human being that will be alive. This is a true horrifying story, part 38. Some of you may find this very scary, but I honestly cracked up for the first time hearing a jinn story like this. This story took place in Qatar in the year 2004-2005. Now I cannot use the real names of these people, so I'm just going to introduce them as Ahmed and Abdullah. Now Ahmed is the person that told me this story. He's a 65-year-old ex-military Qatari man. He's best friends with Abdullah ever since they were recruited in the military at the age of 18. Till this very day, both being in their 60s. Back in 2004-2005, they were both in their 40s, high-ranked in the military. Now Abdullah's father passed away, Allah yarhamah, a couple of years after the story happened. Abdullah's father was an old man that dealt and cooperated with jinns. But he never hurt people, nor did black magic or anything like that. He just dealt with them for his own benefit or his own pleasure. One day, Ahmed and Abdullah were out cruising on a day off late at night in the winter. They picked up some tea and cigarettes and they parked in a deserted old parking lot. Ahmed notices a creepy black cat just chilling next to some bushes. And this cat was just staring at them the whole time they were outside drinking tea. He tells Abdullah and he points at the cat. Abdullah puts a smirk on his face. He goes to the back of the car and pulls out a loaded double-barrel shotgun. He takes 2 shots at the cat, but apparently he misses. The cat just scampered away. 20 minutes. Just 20 minutes later, they both hop in the car and Abdullah gets an international call on his mobile. He picks up and it's his father speaking. His father called from London. He was at London at the time. Abdullah, what the heck have you done? What did I do? What the heck have you done? Yuba, what have I done? He says, the individuals that I'm friends with told me that you tried to kill one of their sons. You almost killed a jinn. And they told me to warn you, because the next time you try harming any of them again, they will take your life. He freaked out. He knows his father's little secret that he does with the jinns. The cat was a jinn. Took them minutes to pass the message from the Middle East to London. And surprisingly, they let it slip. This is for real. Don't mess with stray animals, especially at night. This is a true horrifying story, part 39. The birth of Satan, Iblis. In other sacred texts, he's known as Lucifer. Non-Muslims refer to him as a fallen angel, but Muslims believe that he was never an angel. Angels are made from nur. Iblis was made from fire. Therefore, he is a jinn. He is the biggest jinn, the strongest jinn. And God had so much love for Iblis that he lifted him and he was valued amongst the angels. And then Adam was created, the first human being. Iblis was jealous. God ordered all beings to do sajda for Adam. Out of all beings, Iblis was the only one that refused. And he said, I was made from fire. This being was made from dirt. I will prove to you that Bani Adam is not the righteous being. Adam, Eve, Iblis, and the angels all lived in paradise. Everyone was banned to eat fruit from a specific tree. Iblis manipulated Adam and Eve and they ate from that tree. They had to face consequences, so they were all kicked out of heaven. And that is why people call Iblis a fallen angel. He was never an angel. Iblis asked God if he can have an eternal life, so he can prove that humans are sinners. And that's his task. This is what he lives by. This is the birth of Satan. He gathered the shaitans, and now he has an army. He is the leader of all demons, and he will be the only being on earth that dies last. Iblis today sits on a throne. Nobody knows where he's located. However, in an authentic hadith sahih, the Prophet said that his throne is on water. So we don't know where, but we do know that he's somewhere far in the ocean. There's a short story of a French Arab woman that was possessed by a very powerful jinn for many years. The toughest sheikhs carried exorcisms to treat this woman. But before they kicked the demon out, the sheikhs wanted to ask a few questions. They asked the jinn, "Where is Iblis located?" Without a hesitation, the jinn responds, "We visit Iblis in the waters of the Bermuda Triangle." Some scientists have said, but still did not prove, that the Bermuda Triangle has a magnetic field that caused all these ships and planes to disappear. Now that's just a theory. Now legitimately speaking, a demon has spoken, and he exposed the location of where his leader possibly stays. But could it be Iblis? It is far beyond a question mark. It is in fact a section in the ocean that will kill you if entered. This is a true horrifying story about the most dangerous game to play. And no, it is not the Ouija board. This game is called the Corners game. People sent me a podcast video of two guys explaining how it's done. I've heard of this game a while ago, but since people are talking about it now, I'd love to step in. I genuinely warn you from playing this game, because it is extremely dangerous whether it was done right or wrong, and it does involve summoning an evil presence. Even if I didn't explain to you guys how it's done, you guys are probably gonna Google it either ways. The Corners game is a summoning ritual. In Islam, it is equivalent to practicing black magic. You need 4 participants. No additional players are allowed in the room. A room with 4 corners. No more, no less. All the lights in the room must be switched off. All players must enter the room one by one, speaking their name out loud 3 times. One principal is appointed as the speaker. The speaker stays in the middle of the room, and the remaining 3 players must pick a corner each and face the wall. The door should be shut, and when everyone is inside, no one is allowed to speak. When everyone is in position, the speaker counts to 3. And on 3, all participants must rotate clockwise to the next corner. Now there are 4 other procedures that I don't wish to explain further. But throughout the game, remember, there's always one empty corner. Now people say that one of the principals may disappear. But one thing for sure, an entity in the shape of a figure will appear in one of the corners. There is an emergency procedure of calling your name backwards, but I don't know if that will avoid getting you injured. A group of guys from Japan have played this game. No one disappeared in thin air after the game was done. However, one of the players never seemed the same after playing this game. During their 3rd rotation, they saw a figure move in one of the empty corners. The figure is a jinn, and jinns feed off from empty corners. That is what we know of them in Islam. In households, jinns camp in corners, ceilings, or even toilets. The player that is in most fear will be possessed. And the player that was possessed from playing this game passed away a couple of years later. They were all young men in their late 20s. Sometimes dangerous rituals are commercially sold as games, such as the Ouija board. But they are just dangerous portals. You are literally creating a portal from the jinn world to your own room by playing such games. I didn't even explain how the game is done. If you Google the rest of the procedures, that's your responsibility. Stay away. This is a true horrifying story that took place in Zarqa, Jordan. Muhammad, a 19-year-old Jordanian, back in 2011, he was hanging around the neighborhood with his friends. A 40-year-old looking man pulls up in his car right next to where they're sitting. He looks out the car points to Muhammad and asks him to come. Muhammad at 19 was a tall and muscular young man. So he goes to him and the man seemed very friendly. They chit-chat for around 10 minutes. Now put in mind, that man is a stranger. He asks Muhammad, "Hop in my car, let's go to my place. I'll show you my house." Muhammad was shocked and creeped out. He thought that man may have been interested in a young muscular man like himself. But he also felt confident, because he knew if things went wrong in that man's house, he could take him down. Muhammad looks at the back of the car and he noticed a black dog. Muhammad loves dogs so much, he said, "You have a dog?" And the man replied, "I have a lot more dogs at my house." They hop in and they reach the man's house. And Muhammad says, "I saw the most unusual antiques I have ever seen." He had a cross statue right next to an Islamic one. He had a maid that looked very unusual and she did not speak a word. It was so strange. The same dog that was in the car was on the couch, just chilling there. He immediately knew what kind of man he was. He faked a phone call and he told the man that he has a family emergency and he dipped. Muhammad went back home and saw his mom. He told her everything and she did not take it easy. She was so furious that this happened to her son. She grabbed a small bottle of water and she forced Muhammad to take her back to that same house. They reach outside the gates and she asks Muhammad to open the door. At this point, it's pretty much impossible to control a mother that's furious about her children being in danger. She walks in, she sees the dog and the maid. She sprays the water she had in the man's house. The dog and the maid vanish. The old man starts screaming his lungs out. "Please, please, I will not come anywhere close to your son again. Please stop." She leaves with Muhammad and in the car she tells him, "That man is a sahir, a black magician. The black dog is a ashiq of yours. She's been wanting you for a while. She couldn't come inside the house because our house is blessed. The black dog was a jinn and the maid was a jinn. The only way she could come to you is through that sahir." Muhammad is 30 years old today. He lived in Europe, he lived in Jordan, he lived in Dubai, and in every country he's been to, he still sees that same black dog watching him from a distance. This is a true horrifying story which covers more about the Dajjal. For those who don't know who the Dajjal is, please refer to part 35 for a detailed explanation. A summary of part 35: Dajjal is a human being. He either lived for more than 1,000 years or he will be born one day. In other religions, he is known as the Antichrist, the false Messiah. The Dajjal is a master deceiver. He will make people think he's God. In Judaism, the false Messiah that is yet to come is believed to be the real Christ. Most of mankind will be deceived thinking he is God. Most of mankind will be his followers. They are unbeatable. In many ahadiths, the Prophet said that the Dajjal will have supernatural abilities. But back then, they might have been supernatural. But with today's technology, these abilities are very doable. In one narration, it's said that the Dajjal will cloud up the sky and pour rain. Another one says the Dajjal will be riding on something that flies. These narrations were said 1,400 years ago. Both of these abilities with modern technology are possible. So we don't really know if the Dajjal has legitimate power or if he'll be using modern technology to deceive people. When the Dajjal is out, he will force people to worship him. And if you refuse, your money, your income, and your food will be taken. But how can this be? How can the Dajjal empty my bank account? You're thinking, no one has access to our money, right? But this is the thing. There is a new global integration that was discussed among political leaders and big firms. A global blockchain integration was announced, a new invention for money. All the money sometime in the future will be purely digital. No more banknotes, no more cash. Every single transaction will be traced. And all governments will use the same integrated system that has access over everyone's money. Now, this technology may sound good, but it also may be very bad. Because with a click of a button, boom, all your money can be taken away. This is far beyond creepy. Because when the Prophet spoke about this ability, where the Dajjal can make your money vanish, The Sahabas couldn't comprehend it, but thinking about it now, while we are in the future, it all makes sense. The Dajjal is very, very close. All the major signs of his arrival have happened. The technological abilities, the fasad, the new world order. He is coming, and only one person can save us. This is a true horrifying story, part 43. I know I've been gone for a few days, but I came to Germany for a quick holiday. This is more on the Bermuda Triangle, one of the strangest, most horrifying places on earth. In part 39, I spoke about how the throne of Iblis may be on the Bermuda Triangle. Let's forget about Iblis now. The news have stated that 50 ships and 20 airplanes have disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. But how is it defined by scientists? Some scientists have said that it is common for big natural storms to hit that side of the ocean. Therefore, the ships and the planes were destroyed from these storms. And others say that there might be a magnetic force under the water which may attract many compounds. A pilot by the name Bruce Gernon flew over the Bermuda Triangle on December 1970. Bruce was flying through a big cloud, and the instruments in the plane stopped functioning properly. 30 minutes later, Bruce flew through another cloud, and he realized that this cloud was the same cloud he went through 30 minutes ago. The clouds started to tunnel around the plane, and then minutes later, he made it through. But not just made it through. He arrived at his destination being 2 hours early. The time span above the triangle was supposed to be a flight of 2 hours, but apparently it took this pilot 2 minutes to cross over. Now in Islam, in a couple of ahadith sahihah, the Prophet said that Iblis, who is known as Lucifer, is on water. His throne is on water. There's also another recording of a pilot that also flew over the triangle, and before this pilot disappeared, he tried explaining what he was seeing, but it was too late. On the radio, he said that he was flying through black smoke. He couldn't see anything. But when he was able to see, he saw a lot of strange things that are not humane. If you somehow come close to the throne of Iblis, you will probably not survive. No one can 100% guarantee that the Bermuda Triangle is the throne of Iblis. But strangely, this part of the ocean has taken many lives. And let's not forget this. Many of you might not know this. We have explored only less than 5% of the whole ocean. It is a world way bigger than ours, and I can confirm that Iblis lives somewhere in that world. This is a true horrifying story of the cab driver in Jordan. This story took place around 1991 or 1992. Yusuf, a Jordanian cab driver, was driving around an old village at night. He was on his way home, about to end his shift. On his way, he sees a young 19-20-year-old girl that was struggling to get a ride. He pulled up next to her, and she seemed very shocked that he saw her and tried to help out. She hops in the car and she asks him to take her home. She leads the way and they finally reach. She thanked him and she hopped out the car. She gets closer to her house and she just stares at it. He noticed what she was doing, so he rolls down the window and he shouts, "Hey, get inside your house." She turns her head, smiles at him, and starts walking towards her door. Yusuf's house was around a 40-minute drive from that area. He starts driving back home, and 30 minutes in through the drive, he looks at the back of the car and he notices a handbag. The girl that hopped in forgot her bag. He rolls his eyes and turns around because the drive back to her house is going to take another 30 minutes. He reaches the same house. It was very dark. There were no lights. He knocks on the door. He rings the bell. The bell does not work. He gives up and he decides to come back in daylight. Yusuf wakes up the next morning and immediately goes to this girl's house with her handbag. He knocks and knocks for several minutes. Nobody answers the door. A bunch of guys walk past him and start laughing at him. He turns around and asks about what's going on. They tell him, "You're knocking on a house that's been empty and abandoned for 15 years. Yusuf says, "It can't be. I dropped a girl here last night and she forgot this handbag." They ask Yusuf to describe how she looks like, and he did. The guys started to look extremely uncomfortable. They told him that the girl he described was an actual resident in this house. This girl and her whole family died many years ago in an unexplainable death. And the handbag that you're carrying right now is hers. A stolen, lost handbag. It contained all her items, her documents, her papers. Her relatives and the authorities were looking for this handbag for many, many years. But who was the girl that hopped in the car? This is a true horrifying story of a man who read the book Shams al-Ma'arif. For those who don't know what this book is, please refer to part 25. It is the second pinned video on my page. Shams al-Ma'arif is one of the world's most dangerous books. It carries one of the most dangerous rituals of summoning demons. Stay away from this book if you ever see it. This story took place in Egypt about 2 years ago. I don't know much about this book, but after I heard the story, I discovered some extra information of what this book contains. There are a couple of pages, around 4 or 5 pages inside this book, somewhere in the middle. They contain names of jinns. Part of the ritual is reading all these names, and one of the jinns on these pages will be summoned. A man in Egypt got this book from an old friend. His friend warned him many times about reading the book, but he insisted. Before the owner gave him the book, he ripped out these 4 or 5 pages that contain the names of the jinns. Because out of all rituals in the book, that one specifically is the most dangerous one. He rips the pages out and hands him the book. That friend takes the book back home and starts reading it. As he reads the book, strange things would happen. He would hear knocks inside his house. Small things would light up on fire, and the tap water would run in the toilets. He knew such things would happen. He ignored everything and continues reading the book. All of a sudden, someone outside rings the doorbell. His whole body froze from fear. He opens the door and sees a short, old man. He looked very unusual. His feet were abnormally big. The skin on his face seemed like it was rubber, and his hands were as dry as a rock. The old man looks at him and says, "Stop reading the book." And then he left. Ever since that day, wherever this guy goes, he would see that old man everywhere. At the supermarket, at the gas stations, outside mosques, in his neighborhood. This guy decided to give the book back to his friend. When he gave the book back to the real owner, the owner immediately turns to the pages that he ripped out before handing him the book. And he witnessed something terrifying. The pages that were ripped out were stitched back inside the book. He quickly asked him if he reached and read those pages. He said, "Yes. Ever since I read this chapter, this old man has been following me everywhere." This is a true horrifying story of the tomb of Tutankhamun. I spoke about black magic in many of my episodes. I revealed the terror and the dangers behind its rituals, such as the books Al-Ghazali and Shams al-Ma'arif, the cursed houses, the buried spells, and a lot more. However, the age of when black magic was the biggest, the strongest, and the most dangerous was the age of the pharaohs in ancient Egypt. Black magic back then was nothing compared to what it is today. Allahu A'lam, but from the stories I've heard, I even believe that the jinns were a lot more powerful than what they are today. In Surah Taha, a chapter in the Quran, it talked about black magic and how it was so strange. Black magicians would use jinns to deceive people. They used to throw their ropes on the ground and they would move like snakes. All of these things were made by jinns back in the day of Prophet Musa. Many jinns used to worship these kings, and they would provide most of their energies to execute their demands. Tutankhamun is the last of them. He was the last pharaoh of the royal family at the end of the 18th dynasty. These kings were worshipped by jinns, and when they died, their tombs were still protected by jinns. Many people have died trying to open their tombs years after their death. And the reason behind it is these tombs are guarded by black magic. If you go near an untouched tomb from ancient Egypt, you will most probably die before cracking it open. During the grand opening of Tutankhamun's tomb, 13 people have died soon after the ceremony. The archaeologist Howard Carter was the lucky one that opened his tomb. But of course, he died as well, a few years after that. Now, Tutankhamun died more than 3,000 years ago. A lot of people tried to open that tomb is because it carried a lot of treasure. The tomb itself was made of gold, and we have reports of people that died only from the 20th century from opening this tomb. But just imagine how many people have died trying to open this tomb throughout these 3,000 years. That's how strong the curse is. The jinns have protected his grave for thousands of years. This is a true horrifying story that took place in Ar'ar, Saudi Arabia. This story has also been aired on TV by a couple of imams confirming it. I will add the video source in the comments. A Saudi Arabian man from Ar'ar has 4 brothers. All 4 brothers are married except him. People always ask him, why didn't you get married yet? And he always gets aggressive when someone asks him about marriage. He hates it. He doesn't want to get married. So people knew this man is not someone you should speak about marriage with. A few weeks later, this man was invited to a wedding. In most Muslim countries, weddings separate men and women. The men's wedding was held at a farmland somewhere deep in the desert. As he was driving alone at night to the wedding, he heard a woman screaming, "Please don't leave me, please help." He panicked and quickly turned on Quran in the car. Every time he hears the woman screaming, he would look outside and see a wolf. The screams wouldn't stop, and every time there was a scream, the same wolf would appear. He eventually made it to the wedding, and then he told a couple of people what happened to him on the way there. On the next day, he tells his good friend what happened. They both hop in the car in daylight and they go look for that woman. For hours, they were looking. They found traces from the wolf, but they didn't find anything else. A week later, this man went to a majlis, and he announces that he is convinced to get married for some reason. And everyone there was shocked. You, out of all people, want to get married all of a sudden. Something is not right. He had enough. He decided to go to a sheikh, and he tells him the full story. I hated marriage. I always got aggressive when someone brought it up. One day, when I drove to a wedding at night, I heard a woman screaming for help, but all I saw was a wolf. And then a few days later, I was convinced with getting an arranged marriage. Please explain what is happening to me. The sheikh laughs and tells him, you were attached by an admirer, a jinn that was emotionally attached to you. She made you hate getting married. The night you drove in the desert, she was following you. She tried to possess you, but she couldn't. And that wolf you saw killed the jinn. Jinns are known to be afraid of wolves because a wolf is the only animal that can take a jinn's life. And when you heard a woman scream, it was the jinn getting attacked. And now, you're no longer against marriage because the curse you had was killed by a wolf. This is a true horrifying story of the Ouija board. We all know what this piece of wood is capable of doing. And surprisingly, it's been around since the 1800s. And people are not aware of the dangers this game can bring. When a person wants to come in contact with jinns, the jinn must be invited by the human himself. They cannot communicate unless there is a portal. And the Ouija board is a portal. A very well-known Russian paranormal investigator wanted answers. He went alone to an abandoned house. It's one of the most haunted houses in the country. He took his Ouija board. He brought monitors, mics, many cameras, movement detectors, and a whole bunch of equipment. He lit up candles. He placed the Ouija board in the living room, and he invited the demon to come and play. Warning: I will be showing you real footage of what happened. Before he started, there were small movements detected. He sat down and asked the first question. Are you here now? The glass did not move, but as he placed his finger on the glass, this happened. He kept asking questions such as, was it you who moved the glass? Yes. Can you tell me your name? No. As the glass was still on top of no, he asked, so you won't tell me your name? And this happened. He asked, can you harm me? He asked again, "Do you wish me harm?"
Ты мне желаешь зла?
He called this jinn out and asked to stop the game, but he doesn't know that it's too late. You opened the portal. They play by their rules now. They're not going anywhere if you ask them to leave. And chaos is what happened.
Я прощаюсь с тобой. Уходи. Твою мать.
This is real. Playing this game can kill you. You don't choose what jinn you play with. If you invite them in, they might stick around forever. Stay away from this board. This is a true horrifying story of the woman who converted to Islam. This story happened 6 months ago in January 2022. A Christian Colombian woman in her 30s lived in Colombia her whole life. She was a major sinner, but she was always intrigued about Islam. She always used to see Muslims praying, and she gets amazed with how spiritual it seems. Then she started reading more about Islam. Coincidentally, she got a job offer in Dubai, and she moved to the UAE in early 2022. She met with many sheikhs, and she asked the locals many questions about the religion. Then she learned more throughout her visit. One day, in January 2022, she went inside a mosque in Dubai to pray for the first time, and she felt a heartwarming, comforting feeling as she stepped inside the mosque. And that was the night she said, "Tomorrow I will take my shahada." That night, she goes home. She felt a sense of fear that cannot be explained. She was very scared for no reason, and she was very uncomfortable in her apartment. She read her Christian prayers for the last time before going to bed. She shut her eyes, and a few hours deep in her sleep, she felt something hit her head, and it immediately rushed her up. Her heart started racing immensely. It is dark in her room. She can't really see anything. Suddenly, something drags her from her feet, almost falling off the bed. This thing locked in her whole body and whispered in her ear, "Don't you dare convert to Islam. This religion is bad for you. Islam is evil." Whatever she thought that thing was, it was projecting different faces of her family members while it was talking. And then it let her go. And she realized that what happened was not a dream. This was a jinn, definitely a shaitan. It could have been her qareen. No one knows. The fact that it tried to deceive her was proof that her taking the shahada was very necessary. The thing that pisses them off the most is when you get closer to God. She was haunted by that same jinn for a while. Of course, until she memorized the adhkar. Jinns feed off of your sins. The more bad you do, the more they like you. But the more good you do, the more they starve. This is a true horrifying story of the Illuminati. The Illuminati is real. It is a real society that aims for world order. Their intent is world domination. They are also behind some of history's greatest revolutions and assassinations. They existed since the 18th century, and since then, they were always known for influencing political decisions. People confuse the Illuminati with the Freemasons. The Freemasons aren't exactly the Illuminati. The Freemasons evolved out of stonemasons and builders. The Illuminati recruited many Freemasons because they're known to be people with knowledge. There are ranks in the Freemasons. The higher you rank, the more privileged you get. Anybody who is a valuable asset for the Illuminati will have all their wishes granted, whether it was fame, money, or even both. And if you cross them, they will kill you. There are freaky videos on the deep web. These videos were posted on Twitter and YouTube, but they were removed very quick, where hidden cameras were snuck into many of their ritual events. Of course, invites only. The most famous influencers and artists were present at these events, and they would have the freakiest performances. In Islam, Without a doubt, the three parties, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, and the New World Order, are all linked, and they associate. For one thing, the arrival of the Dajjal. There is no question about that. Muslims have been warned through the Ahadith that a society will deceive nations across the globe, and they will be so powerful, they pretty much own the world. Ask yourself this: do you really think any organization in existence could be more powerful than any of these three parties? War does not require guns and missiles anymore. In the 21st century, war is way more complex than that. Influence is power, and they have that influence. We will definitely go through a world order. This will happen. The Dajjal has been appointed. Forget the jinn stories. If you were alive when this happens, it will be the most horrific thing you will ever go through. And we are weeks away from his arrival. This is a true horrifying story of the real Annabelle. We've all seen the Annabelle series of movies, such as The Conjuring, Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, and Annabelle Comes Home. The stars of these movies are Ed and Lorraine Warren, which are real people. Ed and Lorraine Warren are paranormal investigators. Ed died in 2006, and his wife Lorraine died in 2019. And boy, do they have the most haunted items in their home, which is now a museum for tourists around the globe. And guess what's inside this museum? The real Annabelle. Out of all four movies, the real story of the real-life Annabelle is the prequel, Annabelle Creation. This doll belonged to a child named Annabelle. She died in mid-1900s. Weeks after her death, the parents felt their daughter's spirit being present in their home by hearing her giggles and her footsteps running across the house. They were Catholics. In Islam, we don't believe in spirits being around us. In our religion, when a person dies, the spirit is taken to a different world that is not parallel with our dimension. The paranormal beings that live among us are jinns, and they deceive family members by taking form and using voices of their deceased relatives, making them think that they are the lost loved ones. And that is exactly what happened in Annabelle's home. A jinn haunted that family. It used the form of their daughter and her voice while giggling. They eventually allowed that spirit to possess the daughter's doll. Now in real life, the demon didn't possess the doll. That's just an ordinary doll made out of plastic and cotton. In reality, when they invited the jinn to possess the doll, the jinn actually was invited into their home, and it used the doll to haunt them. This is a true story. An American-based film showed us the truth. It's not really a spirit of a little girl. It's a demon, and it used the doll as a tool to haunt this family. But the question is, if jinns don't really possess dolls, is the Annabelle doll safe to own? No, it's not. Because the jinn tied its legacy to that doll, and whoever takes the doll, takes the jinn with it.